All right. It's setting up for our Facebook Live. So we're going to give it a second. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Second. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, of course, you got the feedback. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I'm Liz Jones, the Blue Star Family's operations manager, and you are watching Networks Live on Demand. We're really excited today to have Erica McManus come on from MadSkills and talk about ghosting, which is a trend in the career space, and we are just learning about it. Well, I'm just learning about it. I didn't know it had a name until recently. If you are joining us via Zoom and you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the question and answer box, or you can use the chat feature. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can ask your questions in the comments and I'll bring them forward. So with that, I'm going to let Erica talk to us about MadSkills first, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, so my name is Erica McManus. I am co-founder of MadSkills, and we launched about 2 years ago with the mission of providing remote work opportunities to the military spouse community. So as we've kind of grown that model over the past 2 years, we are creating and managing full remote workforce teams for companies across the nation. So it's been a really exciting opportunity to see the spouse community excited about it, to see customers continue to come to us to build their remote teams. And so along the way, we have experienced a lot of, of the hiring, recruiting cycle type trends or the things that happen. And, before I got into this, a lot of these things I had experienced as a job seeker or as a candidate or had never heard of. But it's been really interesting now to see it from the company side, to see the things that come from our job seekers and our candidates, and just the best way to support everything happening throughout that whole cycle. So I think it's funny we came up with the topic of ghosting today, also realizing it's like October, right? Halloween's coming up. So like, what exactly are they talking about? So I'd be interested to know, anybody who's watching, like, have you ever heard of the term ghosting? Like, if you're on Facebook Live, just give us like a thumbs up or no, never heard of it. If you're super savvy, you can go to Urban Dictionary and see what it says there. There's a lot of information out there actually about ghosting in the career space. So I think we'll kind of have a fun conversation today about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally didn't know what it was until you had brought the topic to my attention. I knew it was happening, and I kind of guiltily had done it before, and I didn't know there was a term for it. So it's definitely interesting to learn something new every day. I think one of the questions that we had previously was, as far as military spouses are concerned, like, if you don't want to go to a job interview or go to a meeting, how do you politely decline that without ghosting out?
Yeah, so just to define it for anybody who is watching, is ghosting is really just not showing up. And it can kind of happen in 3 phases. It can be not showing up for an interview that's been scheduled. It can be not showing up or replying to a job offer that's been made to you. Or, believe it or not, it's actually happening after job offers or start dates are supposed to happen. People are not showing up. And this is nationwide. This is a trending, emerging thing that's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on, just in the hiring and recruiting space, to see why it's happening. And I have some theories, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But I think your question was, like, how do you decline that? Like, if you get to the point where you're like, hey, we have this amazing interview for you, for whatever reason you don't want to continue, my recommendation is don't just drop it. Just don't not reply, because the world may seem like a really huge place, but it's pretty small out there. And the more you get out there, the more you realize that people just have connections all over the place. And you are your own marketing tool. So you really always want to present yourself as a professional And so if something comes up at anywhere along that process, a really simple email, you don't owe anyone an explanation, right? You don't need to give them the personal life details or that you've got another job. You can just say, thank you so much for your time. It's been great learning about your company. But at this point, I'm no longer interested or I'm no longer available. Boom, done. I can even type that up and drop it in a comment, like use it. It's really that simple. It's just a professional way to say, you know what, life's changed, something's pivoted. I'm not available. Thank you for your time. Because you never know when you may need to go back, right? You don't know what is ahead in your life where you may come back in interaction with that person.
Would you suggest doing that via email or phone call? Which way would be better?
I think it would really depend on what your relationship or interaction has been with that person to date. So if you've done a lot of correspondence through email, an email is fine. If you've talked to that person on the phone a lot, then I would say, pick up the phone. If they don't answer, leave a voicemail. If you're really wanting to keep a really great relationship, it's just not working for you, like maybe do both. Call, they don't answer, leave a voicemail, say, hey, I tried to connect with you. I'm really sorry, but this is what's happened and I'm no longer available or interested.
I'm interested to know your theories on why you think this is happening.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. One of the biggest ones, and it's not necessarily mine, it's what I've just gotten from some of the research, because we'll get into like just some of the ways we've experienced this as a company, is that unemployment rates are really, really low right now. So it's almost, like how the housing market flips and flops, like sometimes it's a buyer's market, sometimes it's a seller's market. There's almost this feeling, and nobody's wanting to like identify it really hard yet. Like I think maybe in another 6 months, this may be like something that's really being talked about. But it's almost a job seekers market. There is such a low unemployment rate, which doesn't apply to us in the spouse community, right? We're all like, unemployment rate, it's still 24% sitting here. But is a national trend. It really is low unemployment. So job seekers are able just to walk away because they may have job opportunities or offers in various areas. So people are just kind of like, yeah, you know what? Not there, going here. And they just don't take the time to follow up with kind of those professional details of, you know what? No, thank you. Especially if you've applied to like 20 jobs and you get 7 offers, like it's going to be really easy just to be like, maybe forget who you've even talked to. So, if you're a job seeker that's doing that really heavily, like keep track, make yourself a Google spreadsheet, keep track of where you're applying. If something comes up, hit those people back and say, I'm no longer available for this. So that's one of them. It's just that it's a job seeker market, and that may continue to become a bigger thing as unemployment rates continue to drop. The other one, which is a little interesting and kind of like retaliatory in nature, is that job seekers are paying employers back. So I thought that was really interesting when I came across that, because I've worked through government jobs, I've worked through state jobs, I've worked through all of those systems where you apply to a job or you get the interview and then you never hear back. And so job seekers are being ghosted in those notions by employers. And that's happened for so long. Some people are like, now with the job seekers market, so now we're going to pay these employers back. It's just a kind of a social construct, whether that's actually happening or not. There's some really interesting conversations happening out there about that.
Yeah, I can totally see that though, based on the fact that, it was really hard to get a job probably it's still pretty hard right now for military spouses, especially.
Right.
But, a couple of years ago when, nobody was getting hired, there were no jobs available, and you would apply for 15, 20, 25 jobs and not hear back from anyone, not even you're not the right candidate or we're not interested or anything. And then all of a sudden now the tables have turned where there is all these open positions and job seekers are like, well, before.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard when you're a job seeker and you put yourself into the black hole of what seems like an organization and you don't hear anything back. And I think there's various reasons for that, depending on what type of job it is, what type of system they're using. But at Google, they get like 2 million applications a year at Google. So there's no way they can hit every single person back, so I think you just kind of have to understand what that looks like from both sides. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of feedback at MadSkills because how we take in candidates is through our applicant pools. And once you put yourself in the applicant pool, right now, there's not really like a system to update you on where you are. So we spend a lot of time talking to spouses about that, like once they're in our applicant pools. And that's something that I think employers need to listen to and we are now moving into creating some of our own technology to where that's maybe a little bit more evident, and there'll be an opportunity for somebody to kind of track that and see, okay, I've applied, you know, where am I in the queue? Like, where am I sitting as a qualified candidate for a job upcoming? So it's a huge problem on either side. But at the end of the day, I have control over who I am as a professional. That's really the only thing I can control. And so I really encourage everybody to always take the high road, no matter how frustrating that gets. You know, just always drop a quick line. Hey, you know, something came up, or no longer interested. Move on.
Right. Yeah, I think that that kind of leads into like the next part that I was wondering about was just as an employer, what do you do when you get ghosted? I mean, you know, because you hire people, and you know, I'm sure it's happened to you. People just wouldn't show up or not attend meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say what other companies do or what other people do. I think at the end of the day, you just move on. But you know, for us internally, this is a very small community. So, you know, you have to watch out for that. And if you have completely forgotten, because let's be honest, our lives are a little unpredictable at times. You know, you may think you've got your whole week scheduled out, and then something happens and you have to pivot really hard, and all of a sudden your career is not what's in the lineup for the week. Especially if you're a job seeker just trying to transition back into all of that. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's that respect factor. If you just completely forgot an interview, or you just completely forgot to get back to somebody who's offered you a job or offered you an opportunity, take a little piece of humble pie maybe and write an email, you know, I'm sorry, I just forgot, or I'm sorry, something came up. You know, is this still an opportunity for me? If not, I understand, you know, let me know how I can best follow up with you. Again, you don't have to go to the other extreme of, well, my kid got sick, and then my husband was in a car accident, and then my son, you know, like, you don't have to get into those really personal details. That's just like over information. But I think the shorter and the more professional you can keep it, no matter what's happened, the better off that you'll be in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think that's like, you are so absolutely right about that, because there are many times when things just you can honestly just forget. And not, I mean, you wrote it down, you put it in your phone's off by an hour, especially in this virtual environment that we're all in. And the next thing you know, that hour has passed, and you're like, oh man,
oh no.
Yeah. And there's panic. So that's
yeah, no, and I mean, we're like, most people are really understanding in that, especially with what we do. Like you said, we are 100% virtual. We work in maybe 8 to 10 different time zones, so we know those things fall through and those things happen. It's just always, it's really that next step. It's that follow-up that kind of determines the path moving forward.
Yeah. Another question that I had was about, as far as can companies ghost military spouses? I mean, I know it probably doesn't happen a lot, but you and I were talking about it earlier, as far as like, you know, taking a contract position through, you know, that might be a government contract position or anything, and going as far as like getting hired, filling out an offer letter or signing it, and the next thing you know, you hear nothing from them.
Yeah, I know, your story is crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know about that. I mean, yeah, obviously it happened to somebody, you know, like that can happen. And, you know, my only guidance there is, you know, do what you can to follow up, to show like that good faith effort. Maybe that's 2 or 3 emails and a couple phone calls. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with going to somebody else in an organization. Like, if you have a direct contact at an organization, and that one person, especially if you've already signed a job contract, like, hello, there's supposed to be follow up here. You know, find somebody else in the organization. I know that's harder when you're remote, because you can't just get in your car and go show up and say, hey, what's happening? But there's still ways that you can do that to kind of reach out to somebody else in the organization. You know, there's nothing wrong with finding that person you've been talking to on LinkedIn, maybe dropping them a message there like, hey, we had been corresponding via email. I signed a contract and I haven't heard back from you. Like, what's up? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it definitely can happen. And I think it's important to separate that out in those 3 steps, right? There's you've interviewed, you've put yourself into something in an ATS system, or you've put yourself online. Majority of the time, you're not going to hear back. I guess an acknowledgement of, you know, we've accepted your application, you're in the system, especially in those larger type of corporations. But I think if you've gotten to a job offer or like a start date and you've been ghosted as a candidate by a company, you really just have to stick up for yourself and take care of that and put that good faith effort forward and move on. If you've spent a couple weeks, like they're wasting your time at that point, and it's really their loss at the end of the day.
Yeah. We actually, I'm looking at Facebook right now, and there's some activity where people are talking about the time zone thing, because it's one of the things that happens to all of us where, when you're working across all these different time zones and you miss calls or you miss emails or you miss interviews, it does happen. So
yeah, it does. And I mean, that's happened to me personally in previous jobs. Even as dependable as Google, the scheduler is, and the Google Calendar, sometimes it does this weird thing, like even to us, and we deal with it, I don't know, every so often, where it defaults to a different time zone or like the overall time zone. You're like, whoa. And so, especially if you have 3 or 4 people on a call, people are showing up at all different times and chaos happens. So we're all human. Technology is faulty, so those things are going to happen. Like I said, I think it's that deciding factor of how you decide to follow up and react to it is what's really going to qualify you as a professional.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is just like the best way is to react if you do forget, or, don't ghost in general. If you're not interested, send an email, make the phone call, be professional.
Yeah. If something's fallen through, like, send the email, say, hey, I missed the call. It looks like everybody was on an hour ago. I'm sorry. I've even gone as far as like sending a screenshot of what I saw on my end just to show, hey, something was wrong in our scheduling, in the calendar, and like, when's your next best time to reschedule this? I really want to get on this call. So yeah, it's just all how you take it. And it just really depends on what the situation is and kind of breaking it up in those different steps of the process. But yeah, end of the day, don't just not show up. I mean, we don't do that in our lives, right? We show up when we're supposed to show up. And it's really important to like treat yourself the same and treat the people, that you're really depending on to help you through a process. Whether at the end of the day you want it or not, people have put their time and resources forward to get to that point. So, if you've decided it's no longer a viable option for you, like just reach out and let somebody know.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to let you guys know, if you have questions on Facebook, go ahead and put them in the comments and I'll bring them forward. We've got a lot of just chatter and activity about, the time zone thing and just not showing up in general for a job, which I completely agree with Kelly over here. She says that's weird. It's strange, but it is the environment that we're in right now with the job market being so robust, apparently. Maybe not so much for military is, but I mean, maybe better than it was a couple of years ago. So, definitely, just be professional as you possibly can. Just that flip side of it of like a company ghosting out on you, that's just very strange. And, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for, to hire somebody, do you just like completely write them off, even though you really, really want this candidate and they have ghosted out on you?
That's really hard because, there's amazing people out there that every corporation, every company, and every business wants. And there's a little bit of part of me that, whether it's fair or not, like I always want military spouses to rise to the occasion, like 20 steps above what, anybody expects them to do. Because once you've been, identified as a military spouse, or you've been identified as a part of the community, with as tumultuous as our community relationship is with employment out there in the big world, like it really is our job to put our best foot forward so that we are setting that precedent. Like we show up. If we don't show up, we follow up. And if we're not following up, then that's not really helping even some of the stereotypes that we fall under. So it's a fine balance of humanity and technology. But I think the easiest thing is really just to follow up. It takes a minute at the most to send an email. And I think most people like really will respond well to that. And back to the time zone change, because I know people are really passionate about the time zone thing. Also, don't feel afraid to like speak up. If you get an invite to something and you're like, this is 3 a.m. my time. Like, am I really going to do this? just communicate that. They may have not asked what time zone you're in. They may not know where you are. And really simple email back saying, hey, I just wanted to be sure you all knew I was in Central Time Zone. Is there a way that we can reschedule this? It's a little bit more of a tolerable hour for me. And just have that conversation back and forth, because that can put a struggle on an interview if you're waking up in the middle of the night, trying to put your fresh face and best foot forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that time zone thing is it's pretty big. It's pretty big. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, not really. I think, just personally, I find the whole trend really interesting. And so I'll be kind of watching it and reading on it. It's something that, affects us as a community of military spouses. It affects us as a company hiring people, remotely from 8 to 10 different time zones at a time. So it's definitely something to keep in conversation and to watch. I think it'll be really interesting to see, where the job market continues to go, and if this actually becomes a trend. Or I actually also read something about companies modifying their hiring practices in response to this. So that'll be interesting to see if it's going to negatively or positively impact both sides of that conversation. So just something kind of cool to keep an ear to the ground on.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And just posted a really cool time zone tool on Facebook for everyone to see. Yeah. That's probably super helpful.
Yeah, I have a little dashboard time zone translator, and then I use my phone all the time because we have family in 14 time zone difference. We've got the company in 10 different time zones. So yeah, we definitely try to keep track of that as best as possible.
Absolutely. I want to open it up real quick and see if there's any questions. Looking to see. Right. You can either do questions on Zoom or on Facebook. Either way, I'll bring them forward to Erica so we can answer them. It's always
yeah, and I'll check back in throughout the day into the thread. So if anybody has any questions or anything, I'll post some scripts. I really like to give short, sweet little things, like save it on your notes on your iPhone, or, save it somewhere. You just copy and paste those things when you need them, as far as either turning down a job offer or you forgot, how do you reply? I think those little things are really easy to grab and just to have on hand if the situation arises.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's really helpful, especially when you're not used to emailing professionally back and forth, to have something to go off of, or just kind of look at that and say, oh, okay, this works, and sending that kind of information across that way. So, well, it doesn't look like there's a lot of tools out there. People are posting their tools that they use.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, to get through. But I just wanted to take a few minutes and to thank you for coming on and talking about this, because like I said, personally, I really didn't know that it had a name. I knew that it had happened, and I know people it's happened to, and I know people who have done it, but I did not know that. Now it's a trend, and it's out there. And if you Google ghosting, it actually comes up with tons of articles talking about the current environment.
Yeah, no, thank you. I always love being able to get on with you guys, and you guys do so much for the military spouse community in education and support. And I think every time we can give that little edge forward to just know what's happening out there, because sometimes that's not where our focus is, or our focus has been, and we're stepping back into this really fresh and untethered. I think it's really great to have these types of opportunities. So thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you. How can people get a hold of you or MadSkills?
Sure. So you can email me anytime. My email is Erica, ERICA, @hiremadskills.com. And MadSkills is with an S, not a Z. We always make that disclaimer. And you can follow us on Facebook. We have a really fun, engaged Facebook community. And our website is where you can also create your free profile to put yourself in the running for some of the remote work positions that we create for the companies that we work with.
Oh, awesome. And I'm Liz Jones, and you can get a hold of me at ljones@bluestarfam.org. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.